In this week's parsha, we have the story of the Meraglim, and obviously everyone knows the basic story. It's considered to be a greater avera than what we understand. Much greater than we understand. First of all, I want you to think for a minute, what was the first avera which was committed on this earth? The first avera.
That's it.
Huh?
That's it.
What's that?
The Adama didn't sprout.
That's an avera?
Okay.
No, the tree.
Het Adama Rishon.
Most people think Chet of Adam Rishon, but that's incorrect. The Chet of Adam Rishon was preceded by the Nachash, who was a demagogue, and he was saying to Adam and to Chava that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want you to eat from this tree because he uses it and he'll know that you're going to live as long as he did. In other words, he used Lashon Hara to convince Chava that you can eat from it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is just trying to keep you away from the great segula of the Eitz Hadas. So the first Avera was Lashon Hara, not the chet of eating from the Eitz Hadas. The first Avera, it was a sheker, it was a Motzi Shemra, and it was by Dibur. So any Avera Shkoyach of Levi, Shkoyach. I have any Avera that any Avera which arouses the original Avera is much more compounded, is much more powerful than Stamen Avera. So we realize how powerful an Avera of Lashon Hara could be. I mean, well, we know it can kill people. Speech can kill, no question about it. So what they did was they spoke Lashon Hara about, and it's very interesting, they didn't speak Lashon Hara about any individual, they spoke Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael. And I have to tell you a little anecdote. Before I was ever in Eretz Yisrael, this goes back before, in the late 60s, I came to Eretz Yisrael in 1971. This goes back into the late 60s. So I lived in New York, and there was a very fine man living on my block who davened in my shul. And the man in his also, I would say he was about 60s in those days, retirement age approximately. He worked hard as I think as a tailor, I'm not sure, something of that nature. A very, very fine person, individual person, very quiet, never caused problems, very good midos. He saved money for years to make a trip to Eretz Yisrael. And he makes a trip to Eretz Yisrael. And he tells me this when he came back. He says, I went to the Kaisel, I was standing on line waiting for a bus, and somebody picked my pocket. And he had in his wallet, he had hundreds of dollars. And he was so upset. Yeah, I'm going to the Kaisel, I'm coming to Eretz Yisrael, and this is what happens to me, like my pocket gets picked. So he had to get it off his chest, so he's talking to me. So it was Baruch Hashem that he was talking to me. Why was it Baruch Hashem that he was talking to me? So I said to him, let me ask you a question. You feel very bad about this, and you're probably going to tell this one, and that one, and this one. What are you going to accomplish by telling all these people? What is your motive to tell these people? Are you going to try to discourage them from going to Eretz Yisrael? What is your reason for telling them this story that happened to you? Are you going to accomplish anything? Is it going to improve anything? Is it going to change anything? He says, probably not. It's just for my own benefit. He says, if you go ahead and spread this story, you're doing exactly what the Meraglim did. The exact same thing. No difference whatsoever. He said, wow. He says, you're right. You're right. Baruch Hashem, I spoke to you, and from here it's going to be stopped. That's all. It's not going to say another word. That's all, finished. You have to be so careful about speaking about Eretz Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, it's toiv, and it's a makom of Eretz Zovas Chol of Devash, and it's nechmad, and it's the best place. Then that's the way it is. What happens to an individual, look, they're having a Churban Beis HaMikdash here, all kinds of terrible things happen in Eretz Yisrael. Even today things happen which are terrible going on. But that doesn't mean that the land in itself, objectively, is not the best place in the world to be. The Kadosh Baruch Hu, if you go along with the plan of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, then everything works out well. Years ago, when they had during Sharon, the Sharon government, and they decided that they're going to evict all the people from Gush Katif.
You were here then?
I was here. What did Sharon do? He hired, I don't know how many, groups of psychologists to brainwash the soldiers who are going to be sent into Gush Katif to evict
Your fellow Jews.
their fellow Jews. And these soldiers are also, pro-Zamir Zionists. They were fighting for the country, to protect the country, protect their own fellow Jews, and here they have to evict them. This is not even the job for an army. The army is to protect them.
And give away land.
And give away. So he had to hire psychologists to brainwash the soldiers, not to be soft, to be hard. Let them talk to you, but it goes in one ear, comes out the other. It means nothing. You do what you have to do. You're being paid as a soldier. You have to follow orders. You have to evict them. That's what he did. Okay, so they finally, some left on their own, some were evicted. In Gush Katif, the land was desert land, all the way down in the south, desert land. And Klal Yisrael went to Gush Katif, and they made it one of the most productive places in Eretz Yisrael. And people had tremendous parnasa. Most of the products of Gush Katif was export. It was, I couldn't believe it. Turning desert land into the most productive land in Eretz Yisrael came out. And it was such high quality. But they evicted the Jews. And the Jews in Gush Katif had, because there was so much work to do, they had to take foreign workers. So they took workers from Thailand and from all these places to come and work the land in Gush Katif. So the Jews were evicted, but the workers, many of them stayed. Because they had a place to live, they had parnasa, and so they stayed there. It was only the Jews that had to get out, not the Goyim. And all of that wonderful produce in Gush Katif all of a sudden stopped. The land did not produce. It did not produce anymore. It wasn't giving out what it gave out before when Klal Yisrael was there. So the Goyish workers who were there called up their owners who had already been evicted and said to them, I don't understand. We are working the land exactly the same as you taught us to work it when you were here. And it was so productive and it was so wonderful, and now it's not giving out anything. We can't get it to produce. This was told over from somebody from Gush Katif. what did we learn from this? Learn that Eretz Yisrael and Klal Yisrael, they are a match. When they are together, the land blossoms. Klal Yisrael left Gush Katif, and all of a sudden it's barren. The Goyish workers couldn't, with the same process that they were using to cultivate the land, to harvest the land, whatever they learned from their Jewish workers, it gave nothing. Because the Jews were not on it. So Eretz Yisrael works when Klal Yisrael is on it. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Am Yisrael, you go into Eretz Yisrael, it's going to be wonderful. It'll be wonderful. It'll be the best land in the country, in the world. And come along the Meraglim? No. Eretz Acheles Yoshvehi. A whole thing. Okay. Now these people, these Meraglim, this is where I'm becoming upset. So I heard a Rav, a tremendous Talmud Chacham. I don't come anywhere near him. Otherwise, I should know 10% of what he knows. This Talmud Chacham. And he was talking last week about the Meraglim. And not only he, but I saw a great, great commentator that we all familiar with. I don't want to mention his name. He also said a very negative remark about the Meraglim. And I think it all stems from the Zohar. And this rabbi who spoke about the Meraglim tried to explain why these Meraglim, they were the choicest people. They were considered like Nisim. They were the top of each Shevet. And they were sent in with the, of course, understanding that they would know how to see the land and how to report back. They came back with this negative report, except for Kalev and Yoshua. What motivated them to change the truth or to look at it that way? So the Zohar says, listen to the Zohar, this is amazing, and this is what this rabbi was quoting. Zohar says that these Meraglim got together and they said, if we go into Eretz Yisrael, we're going to lose our positions. Right now we're Nisim, we are the heads of the Shevet, and there in Eretz Yisrael, we're going to have to build buildings and dig ditches and cultivate and plow and harvest. It's going to be a tremendous Yerida for all of us. And if we are the Nisim and we're going to experience that Kal V'chomer, people who are less of a Madrega than us, Vadai, they're all going to become very, very earthy, and we're going to lose this Madrega. What's it all for? What's for? Let's stay in the Midbar with Hashem, with Moshe Rabbeinu. Stay out here. We have now Chabad, we have the Man. Everything is wonderful. What's lacking? We don't need anything. We're here with Hashem, with Chabad, with the Man, Be'er Shemiliam. All the things we need. What are we going to touch Israel for? What's the purpose?
But they complained all the time.
That Erev Rav. That was the Erev Rav. The complaints were the Erev Rav. So this was a tremendous, tremendous insult to Hashem, and also Lashon Hara, and Motzi Shem Ra about Hashem and Eretz Yisrael. This is what this rabbi was saying. He's quoting the Zohar, and I looked at the Zohar. The Zohar says more or less the same words. So here's a very important point. You have to remember this point. It's mamish vital. And I'll give you an example, and you'll see how true it is. You go to a doctor, and you have a certain problem, a certain physical problem. So you say, well, you know, I'll open up the internet, and I'll see what the problem is and what the internet says. So I'll look up the medical books. For this problem, you have this cure, this treatment, this, that. And that's the way I'll treat myself. I'll treat myself. What do I have to go to a doctor for? It's even better than a doctor. I have it black and white in front of me. Maybe the doctor doesn't remember. Who knows how much he's thinking, but I could be on his. I have it black and white in front of me, and that's it. What do I have to go to a doctor for? What's going to happen? You probably kill yourself. Mm-hmm. Why will you kill yourself? Very, very simple. Because when a doctor has to decide on a treatment for a person, he has to know more, much more, than what just this problem is and what the book says. He has to know the entire background of the person, all other things that could influence this treatment. There's so much in the background that the doctor has in his mind that he's thinking about before he decides what treatment to decide for this particular person, then it's an educated decision. It's not just copying what it says in the book for here. So that's why you have to go to a doctor, because a doctor has the ability to take a larger scale in his let's say, understanding of the case, and therefore he could say, all these considered, this is what you have to do. For somebody else who comes into him, the same disease, he might give him something else, because the background is different, the history is different, all other cases which influence also could be different. So every case is individual, and therefore you have to go to a doctor who knows how to make that decision. The same thing applies when you're looking at a sefer. You're looking at the Zohar, you're looking at a Chumash, you're looking at anything. You cannot take words literally and say, this is it. Because it says black and white. I'm translating, it says black and white. And this is what this rabbi did. I was so upset. So upset. Motzi Shemra. He didn't think for a moment. Let's talk about the case. Here you have a case. We have to decide. Who are these people? These people are Meraglim. They're called Meraglim. Who are they? They were Nesiim of some kind. Some people very, very high up in the Shevet. These people were eating man. These people were under the Anani HaKavod. These people are learning Torah all day long. These people are drinking to the Be'er Miriam. These people are the Dor Dea. These people went through Maimer Har Sinai, Kriyas Yamsuf. They had a revelation of the Shechina which cannot be understood. No other generation will ever come to that level. And you're saying that they're interested in keeping their positions? It sounds like a Hollywood movie. This is what you're saying about the Meraglim? As this is the Zohar? Is that what the Zohar says? That's what Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was saying? That these people they want to keep their seat in the Knesset? That's what he's saying? Chas v'shalom. How can you say such a thing? How could you say such a thing? In other words, if you say that after reading the Zohar, you don't know how to interpret the Zohar. The Zohar is written black and white, it's true, it's translated, but it has to be interpreted properly using the case and knowing all of the background information. Who are the people you're talking about? You're not talking about somebody off of the street. We're talking about Nesiim, the Dor Dea, hand-picked by Moshe Rabbeinu. It says, Anshe Shem, the Torah says, Kula Anashim Anshe Shem, these were people, reputable people. They were known for their tzidkis, for their Torah, for their Yerushalayim. And you're saying they were interested in keeping their positions? Is this what the Zohar means? Chas v'shalom. Chas v'shalom, say such a thing. Okay, so what is the pshat? What is the pshat? What's the correct way to look at it? Years ago, I saw a sicha from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Menachem Mendel, Schneerson, Zatzal, and it opened up my eyes. I was so happy after I finished reading it. And see, that's a Gadol Ador. He knows how to look at it properly. This person that I heard last week is a tremendous Talmid Chacham, but he's not a Gadol. He's not a Gadol. He's lacking in that some kind of spiritual maturity of some kind, and he just takes things literally, and that's it. He messed up the whole thing. And he's not the only one. There are others, the people who also make the same mistake. They just quote it verbatim. That's what it says in the Zohar. That's it. Finished. I can't say such a thing.
They were afraid of success.
Yeah.
They were afraid of success.
That's what Rav Zak said.
No, also the Rebbe.
Oh, I didn't know. I just tell you what I saw in a sikha of the Rebbe years ago, and I'll tell you what he said that I saw. It's true. It says they were afraid of losing their positions, but you have to understand what that means. It means not that they're afraid of losing their seat in the Knesset. It means the madrega of ruchnius that they had in the Midbar, that they will never be able to have in Eretz Yisrael if they have to get into all the gashmias of digging ditches and building buildings and planting the fields and harvesting. They can't learn Torah all day long like they were in the Midbar. They can't do meditation. They can't do it because they're building busy. That's what and if that's the Nesiim, they were afraid, what about everybody else who was on a lower madriga than them? They can become extremely, extremely earthy and materialistic and lose that entire great level of holiness, of Kedusha that they had. That was the concern. Not that they wanted to keep their positions. They wanted to have their position of ruchnius. They wanted to have that high position, the Dor Deah, the generation which will never be repeated again, never copied, impossible. They wanted what they wanted, the Gili of the Shekhinah, that feeling of closeness, the dveikus to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were afraid that they would lose that in Eretz Yisrael. That's what motivated to say what they said. It wasn't a just keeping my seat in the Knesset to get my high salary. That's not at all.
But it was still a crisis in faith. It was a lack of...
Oh, they were still wrong. They were wrong. Why were they wrong? That's right. They were wrong. But their intention was right. They had a kavanah l'tov. It's a limud zchus for the Meraglim. It's a limud zchus. Mate, that also goes along with being successful in Eretz Yisrael, being successful in Gashmias. Why were they wrong? Because that is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. He doesn't want us to remain disconnected from the material world, be up there in the mountains and dveikus and HaKadosh Baruch Hu like on Har Sinai, forget about everything and fast. You don't have to have food, you don't have to have drink. Just you have to have dveikus with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just meditate and just be in another world of euphoria. No. That's not what it's all about at all. Hashem wants Klal Yisrael to go into the material world and lift it up, elevate it. That's what the Ikar is. To take the furthest point and make it the highest point. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. That's the goal. And that's why we have to come into Eretz Yisrael. And even though we may have to go down in the Madrega, doesn't make a difference. You have to do it, you do it. A lifeguard has to go into the ocean to save somebody. He may have to swallow water when he's doing it also, but you do it. Because what's important is the goal. The goal is to save the life. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to take the Gashmias, the material world, and elevate it, so it has to be by going into it and making yourself part of it, and then with yourself go up higher and higher and pull it up with you. That's what Hashem wants. And therefore they made a mistake, and they said what they said, but their intention was not personal. It was not to keep their seat, to keep their position, as it says black and white in the Zohar. It was a mistake, but their intention was good. Their intention was to remain on a high level, not to have to go low and take a chance, and who knows what would happen when you go down there. Hashem says, take the chance and do it, and Mi'ez Hashem, I'll help you be successful. That's the story. Yeah.
So did the spies reflect the will of the people, or did they shape the will of the people?
Well, they came back and they changed people's mind.
They didn't have that
these people were leaders of their shvatim.
They were the leaders, but
so therefore they affected everybody else's opinion too, because the leader says it so.
So you say the people did not feel this way on their own? They
were waiting to hear the report. Everyone was really excited and looking forward to go in. All of a sudden they get back a negative report, and our leaders say that, so what are we going to go against our leaders? All right, I had to say that because it's very important. We should not, Chalil v'chas, be nichshol in speaking Lashon Hara against the Meraglim. The Torah is there, the Parsha is there, and we have to be careful and know who these people were. These people were great people, and their motives were very high motives. But even though with very high motives, they still made a mistake. Okay. So you have the pages in front of you. All right. We're on page 161. Now we're dealing with the problem of something related to what we just said, actually. How do we deal with extraneous thoughts that come to us in the middle of davening, or when we're doing a mitzvah, or when we're learning Torah? How do we deal with them? So look at what the Baal Shem Tov says, Shemaiti, Mimorizal, Keitzad Meragdim Lifnei HaKala. You have to understand the Baal Shem Tov looks at the words of the Shas, the Tanakh, in a Chassidish way, not necessarily in a literal way. Who is the Kala? The Kala is not necessarily a girl sitting under a chuppah dressed in a wedding gown. There's another kind of a Kala. Who's the other Kala? The Kala is the Shechina. The Kala is the Shechina. Keitzad Meragdim Lifnei HaKala. Ben Shammai Omrim, Kala Kamos Shehi. The Kala as she is. That's what you say. You just describe her as she is, that's all. Beis Hillel Omrim, always you say, Kala Nova Chasuda. Ubier. And the Baal Shem Tov explained, Ki la'osid hashchina nikres Kala. In Mashiach's time, she's going to be called Kala. Ma she'ein ken ata hashchina nikres Zos. That is a word that you have to remember. Whenever you see the word Zos in Tanakh, you have to remember it's not referring to the word this. Zos is referring to a presence of the Shechina. L'asad lavo will be called Kala, and the Gemara is talking about this problem. What do you say in front of the Shechina? Okay. Ubazeh yuvan keitzad meragdim bizman hazeh. How do we daven, or say, how do we dance in our time? Begolos HaShechina. When the Shechina is now, it's not in any way in its glorious state that it's going to be then. Shehu lifnei v'kodem shenikras Kala. Now look at the next line. Ki harikud hu laha'alos nitzotzin Umadrega tachtona lahalos el hoyona. Kamo rikud kadosh. You see that line? That line, and it's an amazing line. I always wondered, everything, has a spiritual side to it. What is the spiritual side of dancing? I'm not talking about the popular Goyish dancing, men and women are together. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Jewish dancing. What is the whole point of dancing? Clapping your hands, jumping up and down. Is there any spiritual side to it? So he tells us over here, there certainly is. There certainly is. Just as we have in Parshas Maseh. In Parshas Maseh in Devarim, we have 42 stations that Klal Yisrael traveled through in the Midbar. A review of all 42. So the question is, why does the Torah bother doing that? We just go look back in Bamidbar, and we look back in Vayikra, Bamidbar, we see, we don't have to have a summary. We can count ourselves, go through it all. Why is it so emphasized and mentioned in Parshas Maseh, all 42 stations? The answer is because when Klal Yisrael walked through the Midbar, they weren't just traveling from place to place. Every place they went to, and while they were traveling, they were making tikkunim. They were making tikkunim. By them walking over those places as a mitzvah, al pi Hashem yachanu, al pi Hashem yiso, that every step they took was a mitzvah, and it was a tikkun. A tikkun of what? A tikkun of the ground, of the land of the Midbar. By them walking over it for a Dvar Mitzvah, they are some way elevating that land. They're on the nitzozos of Kedusha in the land, and they fell from beginning of creation. There was nitzozos of Kedusha that fell into the land, and by walking over it for a Dvar Mitzvah, you magnetize those nitzozos of Kedusha, You free them and they go back up to Shemayim. So when Klal Yisrael was walking through the Midbar, or they were stationed in any one place in the Midbar, they were doing exactly that. They were magnetizing out the Kedusha that was inside the earth and freeing it so it can go back to the Shemayim where it's supposed to be. The same thing applies to you and to you and to me, to everybody else. You go out of your house in the morning and you walk to shul, go do a mitzvah. You are extracting those nitzotos of Kedusha that are in the ground, which have a shaykhus to your neshama. You are able to magnetize them out, but somebody else would try to do it, he won't be able to do it. Only you can do it. Everybody has a certain relationship to certain nitzotos of Kedusha that are in the earth, and by walking over them to do a mitzvah, then you extract them and they are released. But only if you're doing a mitzvah. Only if you're doing a mitzvah. Now just understand this, and you understand something which was always a wonder to me. What in the world is going on in the Hasidic weddings when the Rebbe goes and he takes the gartel on one side, and the other side of the gartel, the kala is holding on to it, and he's doing what we call a mitzvah tanz. The Rebbe, other Rebbeim, they pick up the gartel, they're doing the mitzvah tanz. What are they doing? This is what the Gemara is talking about. Kate said Baragdil of Dei Kala. What are they doing? A Rebbe goes to dance with the Kala, or other Gedolim, other Rabbanim, they pick up the gartel, it should be considered as they're dancing with the Kala. You have to understand, when they're dancing, they're not thinking about the dance, they're thinking about what we're learning here. What does he just say in this last line that we wrote, that we just said? Ki arikod hu lahalos nitzotzin umadrega tachtonil halos el hayola. When they're doing a mitzvah to be masameach the kala, that's a mitzvah. At the time they're lifting up their feet, they're thinking of removing those nitzotzos of kedusha that are in the ground, in the wedding hall, and giving them a shechrur, releasing them, and they're going up to Shemayim, making a tikkun olam. That's the whole point of the mitzvah tanz. That's what they're doing. And that's what they do. If you look at the face of some of these gedolim who go over to see that they're crunching their eyes and they're concentrating. What are they concentrating on? What are they to concentrate? Because they don't want to be distracted by the music. They don't want to be distracted by anything else. They want to have this in mind. They want to be misakin as much as they can. So they're putting full focus on what's going on inside of their mind to extract the nitzotzos of kedusha and to be mal, just as they're lifting their feet. It's a simon for them. Just as they're lifting their feet off the ground, they're extracting the nitzotzos of kedusha in the ground, in the wedding hall, doesn't matter, and they're giving it a release, getting it to go up to Shemayim. That's what they're doing. And you're doing it every morning when you go to shul, when you go to a shir, when you walk on the ground. There is, related to your neshama, certain nitzotzos of kedusha, which you are able to extract by doing a mitzvah. And the same thing applies if you go to a vacation resort of some kind, and you go learn Torah there, or you go davening there. You have to be there for a certain reason. You're thinking you're going for vacation, to visit relatives, whatever the reason is, for business, it might be whatever it is. You should know, in those places, you do a mitzvah, you go to shul, you learn, you say Birchas HaMazon, you are magnetizing in those places the nitzotzos of kedusha that have a relationship to your neshama. Only you can extract them, and therefore you are there for that reason. You think you're going for your reasons, but it came out min hashamayim exactly that way for that reason, so that you can make the tikkun olam when you go there. It should be clear. That's a very big yesod in Chassidus and Kabbalah. Very big yesod. People aren't aware. They're always thinking about, the superficial reasons that they have in their mind. They're going for whatever they're going. underneath the carpet, there's something else going on. That's what's going on. And this is what the Baal Shem Tov just told us right now. Ki arikud hu lahalos nitzotzin umadrega tachtone lahalos el halyola. Kamo rikud kadosh. I don't know what he meant exactly, rikud kadosh, but it's probably what he meant. It's dancing for a mitzvah. Ve'ein ze olayofe bizman hagalos. During the time of galus, it's very difficult to do it completely. We do what we can. Today, we're in galus. We do what we can, but it can't be done fully. It's lacking the ability to really do it in full blown and have full effect. We have to have already the geula. Ki mi yuchal la'asosa al tzad hashleimus. Who can really do it, with such perfection? K'mavor b'kisvei Arizal b'sod nefilas apayim. When you fall on your forearm, when you say tachnun, it's also the same idea. Shuhu laha'alos nitzotzin min ho'asiya ad rom hama'alos. So now you know a deeper meaning of what's going on when you're saying tachnun. You fall on your forearm, you're also doing the same thing. You want to take from the lower worlds and you want to release those nitzotzos to make tikkunim up above. Because of Marchu, she'ein itanu yodea adma, we can't do it to perfection in our time also. Even the Reb Chaim Vital said that. Lekach Amru, therefore they said, Beis Shammai kala kamo shehi. The kala, as she is, whatever the matzav is, that's what it is. You do what you can. She al derech shekosa b'zohar. So no davashorim ba'ala fima shemishayir kol echad b'daito v'yacholto af b'derech klal. You have the general idea of what you're doing, and you do it. That's all. You know, more or less, you understand what's going on, even though you don't understand all the details. Im enu yachol b'derech prat liyached hashchina or lakashta. If you can't do it in every detail to the nth degree, mikol kol miyashayir kala kamoshehi. You know that the kala needs to have a tikkun. This world has to have a tikkun, and you are being oisik in doing this tikkun. Beis Hillel sviulo kala noav chasuda. No, shetzorch leida befrat eich lahasir bigdei tzoim v'lichluch mehanitzotzit ulakashta befrat. You have to know exactly how to go about doing it. You have to know each individual point, not just in general what you're doing, but to know in what details are going on. I'll give you an example in a minute with davening. Sheti hashchina kala noav chasuda. Okay. The example that I want to give you is the following. You're in the middle of Shmona Esrei, or you're in the middle of learning, whatever it is, and while you're davening, all kinds of thoughts come into your mind. Now we'll assume that they are neutral thoughts, not thoughts that you're not allowed to think of any time, but things like, what my plan for the day, my schedule, things of that nature come into your mind, or things that happened to you in the previous day, and now all of a sudden they're coming up and you're rethinking them. Beis Shammai says, Kala noav chasuda, kala kamoshehi. Kala kamoshehi. Meaning to say, this is wrong. I'm now talking to Hashem. I'm now conversing with the Shekhinah. It's not right for me to be thinking other things. It's disrespectful. This is not the way you talk to God. The main communication point in our connection to God is in our minds. The main connection is in the mind. My mind is someplace else. This is not right. This is not right. Why am I thinking about my mundane daily chores? Why am I thinking about my conversations with my friends? This is not the thing to do when I'm talking to Hashem. My lips are moving, saying the words, and my mind's someplace else. This is a total disrespect. I got to get back on the ship. Got to get back in order. So I want, in general, I don't know exactly where when. I'm just saying, I know myself this is wrong. I want all of these to be elevated. All these thoughts that I have to be elevated, to go up to Shemayim, and they should have their tikkun there, whatever it is. I don't want to be thinking about them. They should leave me, they should go up to Shemayim. Beis Hillel says, no, that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. He says you have to know exactly what kind of thought and where to send it. Which sphere to send it to. If you had thoughts of, let's say, acts of kindness, of relationships, send it up to the midah of chesed, the sphere of chesed. That's where that's where its source is. That's where its tikkun is. If you have thoughts of thankfulness, gratitude, that you have to express to somebody that you're going to meet, or you already received a favor from somebody, and you forgot to say thank you, or you didn't express it properly, whatever it is, that has to do with the sphere of Hod. Send those thoughts up to Hod. With each thought, you have to be able to put into the proper category. Just not send it up Davar Klali. Beis Shammai said it's enough Davar Klali. In our Golos, not everybody can think about these things. Remember, don't forget, when some things like that happens in the middle of Shmona Esrei, you have these extraneous thoughts. It's totally disrespectful to allow your lips to keep on moving when your mind is not there. You have to stop and think, I got to get myself in order. I got to take myself in hand. I cannot just say the words. These are empty words. They're filled with all kinds of things other than my connection to Hashem. That's not the way to daven. That's a disrespect to Hashem. Who I feel, He knows exactly what's going on inside me. So I have to stop the words. You stop for a moment, you gather your thoughts, and you don't speak until you're in control. Until you're in control again of your thoughts. And you're able to concentrate on the words. And you say to yourself, these thoughts that I have, if I can't do it like Beis Hillel, I don't know which sphere it applies to, I'm just sending it up to Shemayim. Let them up there, the Malachim, let them take care of it. They'll put one each in the proper box. Let them do it. But I want to get it out of here, let it go up to Shemayim, and that's it. That's it. That's enough to Beis Shammai, and that's what every person can do. Every person can do that. You may not be able to think about which sphere it belongs into, but that everyone can do. I want these thoughts to stop, I want them to go up to Shemayim, and I want to be able to concentrate on the words that I'm saying. That is basic derech eretz when you're davening Shmona Esrei. Basic derech eretz. And it makes no difference if you're davening in Hebrew or English. It's the same idea. The same idea. Because even when you're saying it in English, the thoughts can come into your mind which are extraneous to what you're saying. Because you get habituated in the words, you know them by heart, and all of a sudden things come in. That you cannot do. You can't think of other things when you're supposed to be talking to Hashem directly. Okay, so that is that piece. There's a piece on the bottom. Let's take a look at the bottom on Ois Lamed. Where is it? Tzadi. It's a Tzadi on the bottom right side. The bottom right side. I think it's a Tzadi. Mashal Osid Nikra Shchina Kala. You see on the bottom right side of the notes on the bottom. Ein Od Lekaman Ba'os Kufnan Aleph. Ein Ba'od Serachayim. V'yadu Memoran Eloki B'Shem Tov Al Kol Yisrael. Shel Osid, next column, left side. Yeshma Kala, as we said before. Kavanoso Avshu Amok Amok. V'Kol Makom Ermoz Ma'at Ayin Shal. Okay. Now he said, in our Golos, the Shechina has another name. It's called Zos. So he says, Mar Sha'ata Nikres Zos, Ayin B'Sefer Tolis Yaakov Yosef, V'Zel Hashono. Al Zos Yispalel Kol Chasid Elecha Le'ez Mitzah. He quotes a pasuk from Tehillim. Al Zos Yispalel Kol Chasid Elecha Le'ez Mitzah. Every Chasid, Al Zos Shmispalel. What's Zos? Zos means it's the Shechina. Mispalel for the Shechina. Rotzilomar Kol Hayitztarchus Shelo. All of the needs that a person has, Asher Motza Oisai Min Kol HaHarpatakaot. The Eidolov, the Odolov, I'm not sure what that word is. With all things that happen, all adventures that happen in your life, all things that affect you in some way, give you certain needs. So Yitain Leiv Lahavin Shehu Bashchina. You have to realize a very important thing. We are intimately connected to the Shechina. Do not think, as most people do, that we and the Shechina are separate entities. That is a gross mistake. It is a gross mistake. You have to realize that we are intimately connected to the Shechina. And whatever happens with us is inside happening in the Shechina too. Look what the words he says. Yitain Leiv Lahavin Shehu B'Shechina Ikar Davazer B'vur Lahalan B'Fnim V'lo Nizdabein Zeh Kadesh Yispala Avur HaShechina. And this happened to you, this adventure that happened in your life, whatever happened, it happened to you so that you would be understanding and realize it's going on at the Shechina at the same time. Hanikra, so that's what the pasuk says. Al Zos Yispalel. Everyone, a person, Zos Yispalel Kol Chasid Elecha Le'es Mitzo. When something happens to you, you have to realize the exact same thing is going on at the Shechina at the precise time. So it's not that you're something totally separate. It's at a one-on-one basis. What's happening to you is happening at the exact same time in the Shechina. K'mo sheshemati Marakan Shehu Nikra Es Aleph Tov Livshuklula Min Chav Beis Asfar Shehem Min Aleph Atov V'Chabein Lechaber Imo Zayin. So you have the Aleph to Tov, that's the Aleph Beis, and a Zayin, Zayin Sfiros, the 7 lower Sfiros, which are those which are responsible for this world. Shalach Shenikra Bas Sheva Harezos. So the whole world is being powered by the Aleph Beis, and you add a Zayin to the Aleph Beis, Zayin Aleph Tos, which makes it Zos. And that's basically what's going on. This is all the Shechina. Gam Yechavein Lechaber Madrega Tachtone Shebemalchus Hu Os Tov Im Hazayin Madrega Shalom El Os Aleph Shehu Pele Aleph Pele Al Kalashono Ayotzim. So what we're doing again is what we spoke about before. We're trying to elevate the lower levels to the higher levels of the Shechina. Okay, that's basically it for today.